right, shalom, Israel, Most High, Christ bless. Hey, this Captain Hoshai, you're here with another 15 minutes with the captain. Today's episode will be how to properly keep the Sabbath day. To my right, I got
Soldier Uriah.
Soldier Uriah. Now, look, y'all, let's open up with Exodus chapter 20, verse 8.
Exodus chapter 20, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
It said, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. What does it mean to be holy, Israel? Let's go to Romans chapter 7, verse 12.
The book of Romans chapter 7, verse 12. Wherefore, the law is holy.
The law is holy.
And the commandment holy, and just and good.
And just and good. So you got to keep the Sabbath day lawful. Keep it lawful. So we're going to go through some scriptures and show you how to keep the Sabbath day lawful. Let's go right back to Exodus chapter 20, verse 8.
Exodus chapter 20, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work.
In the Sabbath day you should do what?
In it thou shalt not do any work.
You can't work on the Sabbath day, Israel. It's no work. Read on.
Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates.
So that's one way to keep the Sabbath holy or keep it lawful. No work. Let's get another commandment on how to keep the Sabbath day lawful. Let's go to Exodus chapter 35, verse 3.
Exodus chapter 35 and verse 3.
Read.
Ye shall kindle no fire throughout your habitations upon the Sabbath day.
It says you should kindle no fire throughout your habitations on the Sabbath day. Now, I want to talk about kindle a fire to keep warm. Remember, y'all, we had burnt offerings that we offered every Sabbath day. Hey, it's called the burnt offering. That means they use fire. So it ain't talking about kindling a fire to keep warm. Let's see what Moses is talking about. Get Exodus chapter 16, verse 23.
The book of Exodus chapter 16, verse 23.
Here we go.
And he said unto them, this is that which the Lord hath said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which ye will bake today.
Bake that which you will bake today. Bake with that which you will bake today. He's talking about cooking. He's talking about baking. Read.
And sieve that ye will sieve, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning.
So that's another way to keep the Sabbath holy or to keep it lawful is what? No cooking, no working. Let's get another one. Let's get Leviticus chapter 23, verse 3.
Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 3. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest and holy convocation.
A holy convocation. A holy convocation. You got to convocate or congregate. You got to come together in a righteous assembly with other righteous and like-minded believers. That's a commandment, Israel. Read on.
Ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings.
So you got to come together in a holy convocation, a holy gathering. Let's go from there. Let's get another way to keep the Sabbath holy. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 10, verse 31.
Nehemiah chapter 10, verse 31.
Read.
And if the people of the land bring ware or any victuals on the Sabbath day to sell.
So if they brought any products on the Sabbath day to sell, read.
That we would not buy it of them on the Sabbath.
We didn't buy on the Sabbath, neither did we sell on the Sabbath. Read.
Or on the holy day. And that we would leave the 7th year in the exaction of every debt.
Okay, let's get a little bit more proof of that. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 13 now, verse 15.
Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 15. In those days saw I in Judah some treading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in sheaves, and laden asses, as also wine, grapes and figs, and all manner of burdens.
They was doing all manner of burdens on the Sabbath. They was working, they was buying and selling. Let's see what Nehemiah did. Read.
And all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And I testified against them.
You hear that? He testified against them, read.
And the day wherein they sold victuals.
So he got on them for all that amount of work and buying and selling that they was doing. Read on.
There dwelt men of Tyre also therein, which brought fish and all manner of ware, and sold on the Sabbath unto the children of Judah and in Jerusalem. Then I contended with the nobles of Judah, and said unto them, what evil thing is this that ye do, and profane the Sabbath day?
So when we buy, when we sell and work, we profane the Sabbath day. We are not keeping it holy. We are not doing what's lawful. Read on.
Did not your fathers thus? And did not our God bring all this evil upon us and upon this city? Yet ye bring more wrath upon Israel by profaning the Sabbath?
So when we buy, sell, and work, we bring more wrath upon Israel by profaning the Sabbath. Now look, y'all, before we close it out, so far what we did with, no buying, no selling, no working, no cooking, and you got to come together in a holy convocation. That's how you keep the Sabbath day holy. Now, look, I just got to do it since we right here in Nehemiah 13 and 19. Let's prove that the Sabbath starts Friday sunset, and we're going to prove that it ends Saturday Sunday, or when the sun goes down. Read.
Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 19. And it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark.
Begin to be dark, read.
Began to be dark before the Sabbath.
You hear that? Begin to be dark before the Sabbath. Begin to be dark before the Sabbath. Now look, y'all, a lot of you might not understand what we're going into right now. You need to go back and watch the first episode. The one I did that's called When Does a Day Begins. Read on.
I commanded that the gates should be shut, and charged that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath.
Now we're going to prove that the gates was open once again after the Sabbath when the sun did set. Let's get Mark chapter 1, verse 21. So we shut everything down when it got dark before the Sabbath. Why? Because we didn't want to get caught breaking the Sabbath. Soon as that evening time, we had that little crack of light, we start to shut everything down before it got dark. Let's read Mark 1, verse 21.
Mark chapter 1, verse 21.
Read.
And they went into Capernaum, and straightway on the Sabbath day he entered into the synagogue and taught. And they were astonished at his doctrine, for he taught them as one that had authority, and not as the scribes. And there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, saying, Let us alone. What have we to do with thee, thou Jesus of Nazareth? Art thou come to destroy us? I know thee who thou art, the Holy One of God. And Jesus rebuked him, saying, Hold thy peace, and come out of him.
So now, Jesus Christ was in a synagogue on the Sabbath day. It was a young man that had an unclean spirit. Jesus Christ rebuked the unclean spirit. Let's see what happened after that. Now, I want to jump on down to verse 27.
Verse 27. And they were all amazed, insomuch that they questioned among themselves, saying, What thing is this? What new doctrine is this? For with authority commandeth he even the unclean spirits, that they do obey him.
Read.
And immediately his fame spread abroad throughout all the region around about Galilee.
Read.
And forthwith, when they were come out of the synagogue, they entered into the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John.
So now, y'all notice, man, Jesus Christ rebuked this unclean spirit on the Sabbath day. Now he's about to heal Simon's wife's mother. Let's read.
But Simon's wife's mother lay sick of a fever, and anon they tell him of her. And he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. And immediately the fever left, and she ministered unto them.
Read.
And at even,
listen, y'all, at evening, read.
And at even, when the sun did set,
Read.
they brought unto him all that were diseased, and them that were possessed with devils.
Read.
And all the city was gathered together at the door.
Why did they wait till evening when the sun set, y'all? Because the Sabbath was over. And the doctrines, and the doctrine at that time that the Pharisees was pushing, let's read about it in Matthew 12, verse 10.
The book of Matthew, chapter 12, verse 10.
Read.
And behold, there was a man which had his hand withered. And they asked him, saying, Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days?
Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days? This is the doctrine that was pulling. They were saying it was unlawful to heal on the Sabbath day. So everybody waited when the Sabbath was over, and even when the sun did set, and they brought all manner of sick, they brought all manner of disease, they brought all that had unclean spirits, and they gathered about the door. Read.
Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath days? That they might accuse him.
Read on.
And he said unto them, What man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep? And if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will he not lay hold on it and lift it out?
So he got on them. He started to blast them. And look, let's get down to the point, verse 14.
Verse 14. Then the Pharisees went out and held a council against him, how they might destroy him.
So that was the doctrine that they was pushing on the Sabbath day, that it was not lawful to heal. They considered it work. So with that, Israel, and we're going to say shalom, Most High Christ bless, and when the Sabbath come, happy Sabbath. Shalom.
The children of God. We are not black men, we are Israelites. That's right. Take care of us. Take care of us. And our children too. And our children too. We have repented. We have repented. How about you? How about you? People want to know who's the king.
O nation of Israel, it's time to return to the Father. O nation of Israel, it's time to return to the Father.
Now why they trying to make it so hard to serve God? And why when I say that I'm a Jew it sound odd? For years I've been walking around saying that I'm a black man.